Hi all, Mr. McRae here. Another video. This time we're going to do a video. Basically, I talked about on Fridays, Thursday and Friday classes of doing all these different like terms and for define functions and to understand to identify functions. So what I'm going to do now, looking at all we did was kind of a lot. So I'm really going to focus on three different terms of each function, so you can get an understanding. And then next week we're going to focus on another three, and then that's how we're going to kind of approach it. So because again, we're going to be online, we're not going to be doing it in class, so it's kind of a little difficult to do it this way. Trying to do it everything at once. So all right. So first thing we're going to talk about functions. We're going to talk about vertical line tests. We're going to talk about domain and range and finding input and output values on the graph itself. Okay. So if you remember from Thursday, we talked about the vertical line test. Basically, what that basically is a visual way to determine if a graph is a function. Okay. And how that works is basically if you draw a vertical line, okay, that is parallel to the y-axis. If the line hits more than one point on a graph, then it is not a function. Okay, so we'll talk more about that as we go along. So again, visual way to determine a graph is a function. You basically draw a vertical line that's parallel to the y-axis. If it hits more than one point on the graph, then it is not a function. If it hits one, it is a function, okay? Because a function have a one-to-one relationship. Okay, the next one we're going to talk about is domain. Domain is basically all set of x values on the graph. Okay, so that's another important thing to understand. All the set of x values on the graph. Okay, range is basically all the set of y values on the graph. Okay, so and fortunately, domain and range is probably the hardest thing to understand in terms of graphs and understanding how that works. But we're going to try our best to see if we can get this opportunity to understand this. Excuse me, you'll learn more about this in, later on in like ninth and 10th grade as we go along in the process as well. Okay. So those are the three definitions that we need to know: vertical line test, domain, and range. And in finding input outputs, we don't really need a definition for. So let me go ahead and try some problems to show you some examples. Okay. So this is the work that we're going to be doing this week. Okay, so we have a graph here. Basically, we have a parabola that's going out and it's going to the left, to the right. Okay, so first thing we have to do is the vertical line test, so the VLT. All right, so how do we do that? Remember we said we make a straight line that's parallel to the y-axis. So I'll make a straight line right down here that's parallel to the y-axis. So this is my VLT line. Okay, so, and the word was, if it hits the graph in two spots, one or more spots, it's not a function. So looking at this hits twice, so this is not a function. Okay, that's all you have to do for the vertical line test. Okay, next one is domain. Now this is where it gets hard. So basically domain is all the set of x values on the graph. Okay, so let's look at it here. All right, so if this is all the x values on the set here, where does it stop at? Okay, where does it stop? The line stop, or the graph stops at on the x-axis. Okay, so looking at this point right about here, this point right here. Okay, this is the highest point. Let me just transfer that right up into this corner right here. That's that point right there. Now, if you look at it, the graph is going to continue to go this way. Okay, so basically what we're going to say is all the domain be going on this line right here. Okay, so I think that's about 1.5 or 2. Okay, so let's say this is about 2 right here. Okay, so all we would say is, okay, so it's going 2 and it's getting less than, so it's going to continue to go this way. So what we could say is that x is always going to be less than or equal to 2. And that would be the domain. Okay, so anything that's less than equal to 2 would be part of the domain. All right, now let's look at the range here. All right, the range is all the y values here. Okay, so if you can look at this here, basically the range doesn't really stop anywhere because we have the line and it looks like it's going to continue to keep going on this way to infinity, and as well as this way as well. So as it gets away from negative positive 2 and it becomes smaller in the x values, the y values actually decrease and become bigger. So as you can see, it's going to continue to get bigger and bigger, bigger. The u is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So what do we usually say when this happens? So basically, there is a rule for this, okay? The idea is that if it continues to get bigger and it goes on to infinity, basically what you would say for range would be all real numbers, okay? And what that means is that any number that I put in for x that is less than positive 2, I'm going to get a value. I'm going to get a range value for every time. Okay, so it's going to be a one-to-one It's going to be a relationship where the input is always going to be an output if it's less than positive 2. Okay, hopefully you can understand that. So the idea is that the range would be all real numbers in this situation. Okay. So let's look at the next one. Now let's find f of -3. Okay, so basically we know -3 is going to be x. So this is where we talk about input output. So we're going to look for -3 right on this graph right here. Okay, which is right here. This is -3. Okay. All right. So where does -3 cross the y-axis? So if we make a little dotted line going down here, and a little dotted line going to this way. Okay, so it looks like it crosses when it's -3. It's going to cross at what is this? 5, 6, 7, 8. So it crosses at 8, and then if you go this way, since it's not a function, go all the way down here to this point right here, and then all the way across. It also crosses at -4. So again, the output of -3 has two, and like we said, not a function because it has two outputs, 8 and -4. -3 has two outputs. Okay. So the next question is find x when f of x is equal to 3. So remember what f of x means. That just means y is equal to -3. So wherever y is equal to -3, and this point right here, what is it going to be the value of x? Basically what I'm asking. I'll make a little dotted point. So here's the point right here. So where does it cross the x-axis at? So if we look at it, 1, 2, so that's 2. So x would be -2. And that would be the answer to that question. So again, this is what you'd have to do today. Find the vertical line test first, determine the domain and range, okay? Then find the output values based on the information from the graph itself. So let's try a couple more and see if we can do it here and get better at it. All right, so here's another example here. So we have a linear line that's going on this way here. So we have to find the VLT, vertical line test to check if it's a function, domain, range, okay? And then also let's find when f is, let's go with -3 again. And then find x when f of x equals, let's do 5, okay? +5, okay? So let's do this here. So first thing is do the vertical line test. Remember we said make a vertical line that's parallel to the y-axis. It's the y, it's the x. Make my vertical line going all the way down. It touches once. So this is a function. Okay, that's the easy part. Now the next point is domain. Domain means all the x values. Okay, so as you can see, this graph is going to continue to go. This is a linear line that's going to continue to go left, and it's also going to go right. So if you look at it here, all the values of x are in play for this graph. Okay, and so what do we say in that situation? All real numbers. okay? So any number of x I can put in, I'm going to get a value of y, which would be the range, okay? Now looking at the range as well, this one's going all the way up, this one's all the way going down. So this also would be all real numbers. Okay, so that's how you would put that, all real numbers. There's a shorthand way to write it. You can just write it like this. Okay, the double R, like that. Or you can write it, I think it's like, yeah, well, that's how you would write it. Okay, so you could write it like that if you want to, but like I said, all real numbers work. Okay, so the rest of it is, okay, so now we have to find when x is -3. So let's look for -3 on this graph right here. Okay, what's the value of that when it crosses that portion of the axis? Well, it's 0. Okay, so we just have to write 0 for that. Next one is f of x is equal to 5, so y is equal to 5. So here's 5 here. Okay, and it goes down right there. Okay, so that's 5 on the graph, and it hits this point and it goes all the way down to, let's see, 6, 7, 8. So that would be -8. So x in that situation would be -8. Okay, and again, this has a function because it's a one-to-one relationship. Again, the hard part is going to be the domain and range for anybody. All right, and I'm going to be perfectly honest. Okay, so let's do the next one. Vertical line test. Okay, domain and range. Okay, and then find when f is I don't know. Let's do f is 0. Okay, when f is 0, and then find x when f of x equals, let's see, what is that? See if I could find a good point here to do. Let's do 6. Okay. So let's look at the vertical line test. What do we say? We just make a horizontal vertical line right down the middle, right down some point parallel to the y-axis. Does it hit twice? Once, twice. So this is not a function. Okay. Now the domain and range. Okay, domain is all the x values. So looking at this right here, right, at some point it stops on the x-axis here, right at, I think at 4. I think this is right at 4 here. Boom. Right at this point. This is the most point of the x-axis. Okay, so let me transfer that all the way down to here. So as it goes along, it's going making a U, but it's going to the right. It's going to the right here. So it's going to continue going on bigger and bigger. So if it goes on, it would go on this way. Okay, so from -4, so anything, the domain would be, x would be greater than or equal to -4. So anything bigger than -4 is part of the domain. Anything bigger than -4 would be part of the domain. All right, what about the range? Okay, so it's, like I said, there's 2 arrows going out here. So this is going to be this is going to continue to get bigger and bigger as and the x gets bigger than -4. So therefore, the range is always going to be all real numbers. Okay, very hard to understand that, but we'll practice that. Okay, now finding the f of 0. Okay, f of 0 is right here at this point. All right, that's the origin. So where's across the y-axis up at this point? Right here, that +11. And this one right here at -6. I think that's -7. So again, we have 2 points again. We have 12 and we have -7. Okay, obviously because we have a function. We don't have a function here. Now the next one. Now what is f of x when it's 6? So basically, when is y equals 6? What is the value of x? So right here is 6. What's the value of x here? That's 3. So x would be 3. And that would be the answer to that. -3, sorry, -3. All right, and that would be the answer to that. All right, so again, that's what you're doing when you're doing your identifications. All right, so let's try another one. So we got VLT, we have domain and range. Okay, and then we have to find when f is equal to 3. Okay, find x when f of x is, I don't know, let's see. Yeah, we did 3. And let's see, we'll do f of x when it's, let's do it when it's 5 again. Make it simple. All right, so vertical line test, so we make a horizontal line parallel to the y-axis right here, and it hits once. So that is a function. All right, so domain, okay, so let's look at the domain here. All right, so where does it cross? Again, at a certain point, it stops at the, it continues to get bigger and bigger, right and left, okay? It gets wider and wider as it gets higher and higher. So basically, the domain would be all real numbers. Okay, all real numbers for the domain. Now the range, okay, so look at this point right here, right at this point, all the way over, right here, that's like 2. And then we continue to go up as we go along in the process, right, this way. So again, we would stop at 2, so then our real numbers would be, the range would be y is greater than or equal to 2. That would be our range for this value, okay? Again, so you should start seeing a pattern. When it's a parabola and those kind of things, you're going to have different kind of domain ranges, okay, as you go along in the process. All right. So find f of 3. So again, I'm going to look for 3 on the map. That's my x value. 1, 2, 3. This is 3. Make some points all the way up, and it stops right at this point right here. So that's 5. So their value would be 5 at that situation. Okay, find x when f of x is 5. All right, so f of x is 5 or y is 5. Okay, so where does it hit? That point right there, and also this point right here. So we know one of them, x is going to be 3. Okay, and then the other one, okay, if we look at this side, the other one is going to be, let's see, 3, 6, 7, -7. And so, it's like, wait a minute, but there's 2 inputs for 1 output. Doesn't that mean it's not a function? Well, it is a function. Remember, we said during mapping, we have 3 and -7. They can point to one different point. Both of them can point to one point. So that is a function in that situation. Okay, that is a function. All right, so don't get confused by that. All right, guys, so this is how we want to do for, we're going to work on this for the whole week. Okay, so just determining the domain and range, vertical line test, and then also trying to determine the input-output on the test. Input-outputs from the graph itself. All right, guys, have a good day.